Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Education Exchange. I'm your host, Jeremy Calles, Superintendent, Tolleson Union High School District. Our guests today are from Arizona State University. We have Vanessa, Ruiz, who is the Deputy Vice President at ASU, and Quintin Boyce, who is the Associate Vice President over at ASU. Vanessa, Quintin, you want to tell the audience a little bit about yourselves?
Sure. Thank you so much. And thanks again, Superintendent Calles, for the invitation. We're excited to talk about all things ASU. So Access ASU, which is also the name of the unit in which we work in, at the end of the day, we were created to make sure that we were enrolling the full demographic of the state of Arizona into ASU, into post-secondary. What does that really mean? At the end of the day, it just means that we're working hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder with our K-12 students all across the state to make sure that they are prepared, they're ready, they're energized, and that they're successful, right? In that transition that is so critical between middle school, high school, and then, of course, onto that post-secondary experience.
Just to add a little bit, so even about myself, longtime K-12 educator, now have afforded the privilege of working at ASU in our outreach team. As Vanessa said, at the end of the day, we're trying to build pathways and bridges from that K-12 space so that all of our students here in the Valley, we want to enroll the full demographic and make sure they have a post-secondary plan. And even more intentionally know that Arizona State University is willing and excited to accept them and have a place to make sure they can come, learn, grow as individuals, and then launch into whatever career destination that they have.
Now, I'm personally a Sun Devil fan, but when you're in Arizona, we have three big universities to choose from between ASU, NAU, and U of A. What is it that you think separates ASU from the other two big universities here in Arizona?
Oh, my goodness. Like, how long do we have? No, I think at the end of the day, all of our three universities are amazing. I too, personally, I'm a double. My undergrad degree, my doctorate from Arizona State University. And while I've not, been enrolled at every university in the country, Arizona State University is just so different. Obviously guided by the charter that really articulates the vision, the mission, the responsibility of the university to be measured by whom we include and how they succeed, and also taking fundamental responsibility of the community we serve. You'd be hard-pressed to find a major that is not represented. The autonomy and the opportunity for a student to come and be the best version of your academic self and explore and innovate. It is truly a place to grow as an academic, but then also just as important as a person. And you're encouraged to do so, which I don't know if that is true everywhere you go.
I would echo all of what Dr. Boyce just shared, but I would also add that typically, and we know this, right, institutions of higher education, they typically pride themselves, right, on their exclusivity and how hard it is to get in. For them, that means prestige, et cetera. But at ASU, it's the complete opposite. Our mantra is, if you have a desire to learn, to grow, to get that college education, and you're willing to put in the work, we will open the doors for you and not compromise excellence. That's also really important because we want to make sure that while we are offering that opportunity of education to all who desire it, want it, and go after it, we also want to make sure that once they're with us, they're getting a quality education that is going to serve them in the long term. So for me, that's the difference with ASU. That's why ASU is known as the new American university. Again, when you take a look around, you don't see that probably, I would say, in 99.9 of the other universities across the country. So I think we're very fortunate to have an institution like ASU here in Arizona.
Now, with ASU, we have a lot of students, a lot of families be excited to send their students off to go meet Sparky, hang out at the campus. But there's barriers to getting away for families. There are things that create some anxiety for families. I kind of want to pick through a few of those. We'll start first with the separation anxiety. You've had your young child with you their entire life now, and you're going to send them off to the big university. What exactly does that look like? Should they go ahead and start repurposing that room into a weight room? How often are they going to still get to see their child? Do you require them to live in dormitories, or what exactly does that look like that freshman year where now you're no longer in high school, you're at a university now? What should families expect?
Yeah. it can be tough, right? I mean, for any parent, for any caretaker to see their little bird fly the nest. And as you mentioned, Superintendent, all of the anxieties and concerns and worries that come with that. But I will say at ASU, we have a very robust welcoming plan in place that is truly systemic in terms of from the minute that they arrive onto campus, and if they're living with us in one of our residential halls, there's an entire community built around that residence hall, typically around the major that student has chosen. So there's already affinity and commonality with the people they're going to be living with. In addition to that, we have hundreds, and when I say hundreds, I mean hundreds of student clubs and organizations, again, that appeal to every taste, every passion, every hobby, every career path. All of these things put together, of course, with a faculty that is knowledgeable, that is invested, with staff that cares. And I truly mean that our staff are truly invested in the success of our students. When you put all of that together, it's really a wraparound service that comes around that student to make sure that they are successful. Of course, parents will be seeing their children. Don't you realize that they have to go home and do their laundry?
It's so true. Good point.
It's so true. Like, and I think a lot of it really just kind of depends on family dynamic. Well, with that exact point, as an undergrad student at ASU, like I went home every Sunday to do laundry because it was free, And so really just kind of depends on the family unit and what they want. But just to reiterate the point about ASU, there's so much support that is there in place for a student and a family as well. So if you are a family and you're launching your oldest kid going off to college, there are so many different groups that you can get involved in. So you can have that collegial support of other families and parents that have either currently going through the experience or they've gone through it before. Additionally, students, like when you get there, we really want our students, our first-time students, to live on campus. There's tons of research that shows they perform better academically when they're immersed on the actual campus, surrounded with students going through similar academic and personal experiences, and the academic support that is right there embedded. So really, it's kind of up to the family unit. Like I went home every weekend. But the other thing too, like for the student that's from Tolleson Union and concerned about like, I want to go away somewhere really far to school, like Tempe's far enough, that if you choose, like, I want a little space from my parents for some time, like you could do that too. And between the student organizations that are in place and all the different well-being services that are there for students, like you really have to try hard to not connect to resources. And just like in the high school space, like all the research says that if a student is involved in organizations and activities in addition to their academic pursuit, they're more likely to be successful.
Definitely sounds like a great model. Now, you guys touched on about that student wanting to come home and do laundry. Mm-hmm. Maybe even wanted to come home, restock up on ramen noodles and other necessary supplies to get through the week. We know that, when you're a college student, you expect, it's a rite of passage. It's also a rite for some suffering. So we know we're going to struggle a little bit financially. But exactly what does that look like? How attainable is it to go get a degree from ASU? What can a family expect on the finance side in terms of how much they're going to be out of pocket trying to send their student out for this nice quality education? And how does that range at ASU? Like, is it all 4-year degrees and up, or you guys have some other offerings for other students?
That's a great question. The first thing I would say for any family, any caretaker is start a 529 plan. And if you don't know what that is actually a state program that allows families and caretakers to invest in their children's education as early as their elementary school days. It's a small payment once a month into a savings account so that by the time that student graduates from high school, their college education is pretty much paid for at any one of our tri-universities here in Arizona. So 529 plans, please check those out because those are incredible plans to get a head start. If you don't have a 529 plan, that's okay. We, again, Access ASU, that's why we exist. One of the things that we do is work with families and caretakers to provide financial education and literacy and planning around going to college. So I think the biggest message is the earlier you start to plan and get ready, the better. And when I say early, for example, middle school, I'm talking middle school. Okay, what are the things that your student is going to start to think about and need to do once they transition into high school from an academic perspective so that they can qualify for scholarships, for example? Make sure that when the time comes, you are filling out your financial federal aid form, also known as FAFSA. So many of our students in our communities qualify for incredibly substantial amounts of money through federal aid, Pell Grants. Now we have also the Obama Scholarship, the Arizona Promise Scholarship. So it's about knowing what your options are, being prepared to take advantage of those options. And if you don't know all the answers, you don't know where to begin, that's okay. Again, that's why teams like Access ASU and others at ASU exist. We're here to walk you through that every step of the way.
Only thing I would add is there's a litany of resources that are available, and for the parent that is not sure where to start, again, that is why we exist. The earlier you can start, the better. But even as a student launches into their post-secondary career and they're at ASU, like their work study programs, like there's so many different avenues to make college affordable that every family and every child, as they're considering their post-secondary options, they should really look at what's there. And if they're not sure, just reach out to us and we can help support. ASU, again, is one of the best values when you look at the cost of tuition compared to other in-state universities. And even for out-of-state, like it is the value proposition when you compare the quality of experience you get with the actual cost. It's phenomenal. And I know that's something that our university and our president continues to pride ourselves on, just the value proposition.
I would just, if I may add, listen, I'm a first-generation college student myself, right? And my mother had to work incredibly hard to be able to send her children off to college. So I get it, right? I worked full time while going to school. I mean, it was blood, sweat, and tears. And so I share that to say that I understand the worry and the consternation that so many families in our community share when it comes to the financials, right, of going to college. Because I also want to address this discourse in terms of the value of college and the cost of going to college. And those are two different things. And I think sometimes now we hear in our community, it's not worth it. It's too much money. You're going to walk out in debt. Number one, you don't have to walk out in debt if you plan accordingly, right? If you really, truly prepare. Two, the value of a college education, that is something that is immeasurable, not just now in the immediate moment of your life, but mid to long term. Data shows that, research shows that value of that degree is going to carry that student not just further in their own lives, careers, and jobs, but that of their immediate family as well. So it has a ripple effect in addition. So I think it's important we talk about that and that we really engage in discourse and dialogue with our parents and our families to try to demystify college and make it accessible for them, because it is.
Now, you both touched on the importance of planning early. And we have a lot of families who may not be thinking about college until the week before graduation.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that's a little late for planning, but is there any such thing as too soon? Like, how early should someone be thinking about college? And if they are thinking about college, if they were to call you and you get a phone call and you said, you know what, I'm thinking about sending my student over to ASU. Mm-hmm. And you ask, oh, that's great. So they're graduating in 25. No, actually, they're graduating in 31.
Yeah,
their class of 31. Am I calling you too soon? Do I need to call back later, or are you guys can talk to me now and get me on track on how I'm ready?
I think prenatal is when, in all seriously, like absolutely. We talk about 529s, like the minute your child is born, if you have the ability and the means, start planning. So financial barriers, you can mitigate those to the best of your ability. But then even when I think about like young people, we want to expose young people to the idea of college and the university as early as possible. Is there such thing as too late? I'm going to say no. I think about when we look at our model, we believe in the learner like 8 to 80. Wherever you're at in your personal journey, like it is never too late to further yourself academically. But if you can go back in time and the DeLorean exists, you know what I mean? And you're thinking about prepping a young person in the future, it's never too early. When I think about that K-8 experience, how are we starting to orient our kinders to think about Like high school is not the destination, you know, post-secondary, you know, degrees are. And in some communities, like that actually happens. In other communities, it doesn't. And I think and I believe that like brilliance is equally distributed among people. Opportunities aren't, you know, and so we believe in this idea of like closing that opportunity gap. And how do we expose as early as possible? Like as a former, you know, secondary person, I think about that senior who, you know, a month ago, they're about to graduate. You're like, what are you doing in a month? And they're like, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? While it's not too late, a little bit more difficult to figure out what's next. But that ninth grader, again, if you expose them there early, and we even think about like money and the cost, like you can make so much money as a high school kid based on the academic decisions you make in the form of scholarships. If you're really tuned into your academic journey, what if we can orient them earlier as a middle school kid or as a K-8 kid? And we talk about like what you want to be when you grow up. We have that conversation through the lens of like education to help get them there. You know, now you start to really shift mindsets, and that's pretty powerful. Yeah. So early, too early, that does not exist.
Never too early and never too late. I really want to highlight that. Just a few weeks ago, we had our Hispanic convocation at ASU. We had over 900 Latino student graduates. It was phenomenal to see. And we had a gentleman who was 60s or 70s who was receiving his bachelor degree. Mm-hmm. And he got up there and got his diploma. And again, what an incredible example that it is never too late. So that's something too that I want to make sure folks in the community know. Never too early, never too late.
Well, and you touched on actually a piece from my graduation speech. That's what I was telling the students, was that high school graduation, that was always meant to be a milestone. It was never a destination. They do need to have a plan after high school. And so, you know, I definitely look at ASU as being a part of that plan. For those that are reaching out early, so you both have touched on the 529 plan. Is there, what if all I can spare is $20 a week? Is there any kind of minimums on a 529 plan? And how much, like, if my students in first grade and I'm trying to prepare, like I see college in their future, they're bright. I know they're going to do great things. Is there like a minimum amount? Like you can just, whatever you can afford at the time, put that in there. It'll help make it easier when you get there.
Exactly.
Every dollar counts. So there's no such thing as like too small of an amount. And that's on the financial side. But there's a lot of research that talks about with 529s, not only is the financial component really important, but the more that you're really intentional about investing in a post-secondary future for your child early on, there's actually research that shows there's like a mental and mindset shift. That like now college and the university becomes possible because you're starting to eliminate the affordability barrier super early, and you're actually starting to condition your young person and you as an adult that like that is attainable and that is for you and will be you. So $1, you know, $1, like just like making space and time to say, I'm investing in your future. There's so much power in that.
And students see that, right? Students see the effort, the work that parents and caretakers put into such things, such as a 529. I thought you were going to say $20 a month.
I'm like, that's amazing.
I'm like, $20 a week. That's fantastic. Yeah. But again, to Dr. Boyce's point, you know, rare is the student who achieves any kind of success on their own, right? That parent and family support is critical. It's absolutely critical. I mean, you rarely see a student not just graduate high school, let alone college, right, with a support system around them that allows them to get to that incredible milestone. And that's one of the things that Access ASU does. And I know we've had such an amazing relationship with Tolleson on, which is our family engagement programming, which is creating advocates and champions for their child's education as early as elementary school through these kinds of programs right within the home. Because there's really, at the end of the day, and you know this well, there's really no better champion. There's no better cheerleader for a student's success than their own families.
Absolutely. And now while we talked about the parent doing their part, let's talk about how the student can do their part. So in addition to going after financial aid and saving up money and those opportunities, let's talk about scholarships. Let's talk about how students earn scholarships. Are there some silver bullets in there? Are you guys looking at grade point average, the ACT, AP tests, weighted GPAs? Like, what exactly is the right mix for someone to be able to apply to ASU and try to get in there on a scholarship, either a partial scholarship or a full ride scholarship? What are some opportunities there?
Great question. Again, starting early, I think, is key, right? So as that student is starting to transition from middle into high school, first and foremost, right, start becoming knowledgeable on what are the classes that student needs to make sure they take during their high school years to then be admissible into the university, right? Super important. Once you know what those classes are, then you can create a roadmap. Okay, these are the classes for my freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year that I have to make sure I'm taking. What are the grades that I need to make sure that I'm achieving in these classes to be able to qualify for certain scholarships? Because if there's one thing I can tell you is that there are scholarships, all colors of the rainbow, philanthropic, personal scholarships, merit-based scholarships. So even if it's that student is athletically gifted, if it's in the arts, if they have some kind of talent or skill, volunteering in their community, all of these things are rewarded, and many times are rewarded via scholarships. So there's actually, ASU has a very robust scholarship portal where students can go in and literally just type certain keywords. And when I tell you that hundreds of scholarships will pop up, scholarships in the hundreds will pop up. So start planning early, make that roadmap, start investigating and researching. I also think that that's where our school counselors come in, because it really does take a village, as you know, and you don't know what you don't know. So sometimes we see it, students don't even know where to begin. So I also think it's important for the adults in the room to be able to appropriately orient the students into the right direction.
And some of the work that our team that we do is we'll work in tandem with counselors, and we work very closely with Tolleson counselors, because to Vanessa, there's no shortage of scholarships. People typically tend to, really default to like, I have to be a straight A student to earn a scholarship. And while true, if you are a straight A student, you're going to probably have no shortage of scholarships, but they're a left-handed student scholarship exists, and so if you earmark and you make the time as a high school student or with your family or in tandem with your counselor or with us, you would be amazed at the number of scholarships that are out there that are not just only based on academic performance. Because you have a lot of students say, like, I didn't earn fill in the blank GPA, so I probably don't qualify for anything. And that is so far from the truth. And then you have some really prestigious merit-based scholarships, like the Flynn Foundation. So the Flynn Foundation is all about keeping Arizona talent in Arizona. And there are, as I mentioned before, beautifully gifted and talented students everywhere, but not every student know about Flynn. And that scholarship is so valuable. It'll pay for your undergraduate degrees, your graduate degrees, your study abroad opportunities. And I just want every kid in the Valley to know about those types of opportunities, because right now I don't know if every kid in the Valley knows about those types of opportunities.
Well, we're trying to get the word out to them. That's why we got this podcast.
Yes.
But I want to touch on another piece that you hit on just a moment ago, Vanessa. You talked about making sure you're admissible, and I get that ASU has the model of valuing themselves based on who they're able to include, but there is still an admission process. And ASU has made a remarkable change in that area that actually spurred off one of my ideas for Commitment Day, which we'll get into in a bit. But I want to talk about how ASU has moved towards accepting seniors at the beginning of their senior year. Exactly how did that come about? And what are you seeing? So are you seeing that out of the students that are submitted to you, like half of them are getting accepted into ASU? Would you say more than half? Like, how's that program working out for you so far?
It's actually really cool. It started right here with the school district in the Valley, and it was one of those kind of conversations where it's like, hey, why is it so difficult for a kid to go to college? Especially if you think about first-gen families that may not know the actual steps that need to happen, but have the ability, the intellect, the aptitude to absolutely go. And it was like, well, the district was like, hey, ASU, like, can we do something to eliminate the barrier, as many barriers as possible? I was like, sure, let's try. And so at the time it was students that are eligible to gain entry into Arizona State University through an agreement between the university and that particular school district. Was like, hey, we'll automatically send letters to your students, your seniors, to say you've been admitted because you've done everything that you were supposed to do. You have now been admitted. And again, the idea was to blur the lines, especially for, I think, a first-gen family that may not know what steps to take. And that was like an incredibly amazing exercise in like, how do you create an additional pathway for students to not only have a post-secondary plan, but to know that like you are enough and you can go and you should go and you can go at this point. And over the last several years, Project Sunrise, now called Personalized Admissions, started with that one district. Over half the state is participating, and now all 3 universities are a part of that experience. And we're watching year over year, the number of students that are automatically admitted, we're seeing more matriculate, which again is awesome because we're blurring the lines, we're making it less difficult. The other cool thing about that project, it now extends not just your seniors, but your 11th graders and your 10th graders, and even your 9th graders can now receive communique from the university to say, hey, like you are doing what you're supposed to be doing, keep it up. And as long as you keep it up, like we're waiting for you. And why shouldn't it be that easy? You know what I mean? If you've held up your end of the bargain, why shouldn't it be that easy?
I absolutely agree. Now, your idea helped blossom my idea, so we'll get into that. Commitment Day. So I was sitting around with my cabinet, and I was going over this idea. I'm like, so all of our students are going to start to receive these letters. Well, not all of them, but the ones that are accepted. Yes, all the students that are accepted, they're going to get these letters. The big 3 universities have accepted them. I was like, all right, let's talk about that experience. So you're going to get a letter, and it's going to say, you've won this prize that you didn't put in for. Let's think about used car dealerships. When they send something over, nothing against used car dealerships, but they send something over, you scratch it off, and it's like, come match up this number, and you've won a big prize, and we'll tell you what the big prize is just as soon as you get over here. By the way, bring your checkbook. I was like, is this a phenomenal move in the right direction? But is this how we're selling it to them? Does that have enough sizzle on it? And then I thought about, and for the kids who come in talking about the letters that they've received, what happens for those who didn't get a letter? And they hear everybody else talking about their letters, and they're just sitting there quiet, and they're thinking, the universities don't want me. So with that, what we ended up doing was our idea for a Commitment Day, where I said, I want to do a lot more than just have a letter. We're bringing everybody out to State Farm. I know you guys are coming out to participate. We want to highlight all the opportunities for all of our high school graduates on what they can do and have them make their choice over there. And when I hear them say, I'm going to go be a Sun Devil, to be able to send them your way so you guys can tell them what the next steps are, what they need to finish up doing before graduation, so they actually are a Sun Devil. So I wanted to get some of your thoughts about participating in our Commitment Day. We do have the date set now. It will be September 17th and 18th. So we've locked in State Farm after the Cardinals set their training schedule. Unfortunately, we were second bid to the Cardinals. The fact that I'm the Cardinals fan, I let it slide. But we will still be over there at State Farm Stadium on September 17th and 18th, and talk to us about what students can expect to see when they see you at your booth over there for Commitment Day.
Energy, excitement, a welcoming attitude, folks that want to get engaged and answer all the questions. Students have a lot of questions. Leaving them with like a person they can call if they have additional follow-up questions, if they know that there's a human being on the other side of that email, phone, whatever it may be, that they can reach out to now moving on and have their questions and any concerns addressed. I did want to mention that while you talk about the admission letters, right, we also do send what we call a middle tier of letters to students who may not be yet fully admissible, but maybe have 1 or 2 missing requirements. So they're almost there. So we also do that because, again, to Dr. Boyce's point, we recognize that with just a little bit of encouragement, students can get across the finish line. So, we don't want to leave anybody behind. We talk about that all the time within ourselves and our staff and our team. When we're not doing our work, when we're not trying to think outside of the box and expand, how can we do more? The question always turns back to which students and families are we leaving behind if we don't? And for us, and I'll speak for the team, I think in this case, that's unacceptable, right? We're not willing to leave anybody behind. So when something like Commitment Day comes around, what a fantastic opportunity, right? To create, again, that engagement, that excitement, and hopefully a self-commitment from that student saying, I am committing to doing this for myself, for my future. So again, we're excited to be there, committed to be there. It's going to be the first time. So kudos to you and the team for wanting to do something different. And we're excited. We can't wait.
Now, getting them to you over at ASU, obviously the first big step. But if I was going to go travel to a restaurant and it was a little distance for me to get to that restaurant, and I haven't been to that restaurant before, the first thing I'm doing is pulling up their menu. I want to know what's available before I make the trip. Let's talk about what's on the menu for ASU. How well connected are you guys to the business community and knowing that your programs are well in line with what they want to see and that they are actually providing jobs on the other side of the college coin, that, someone goes, they commit to ASU for 4 years, they've invested in this degree, their time, their energy, their money. They want to know that there's something waiting for them on the other side. How well connected are you guys? What are some of the big programs right now that you see buzzing around?
Oh my goodness.
Where to begin?
Yeah. There's no shortage of opportunity. So the cool thing is that, for a student, you want to make sure that whatever you're investing your time, your talent, and your treasure into, there's going to be something waiting on the other side. And so all the degree pathways and programs are aligned to do just that. Like, what problem do you want to solve? I don't even think about what job do you want to have. It's like, what problem do you want to solve? In the university, the programs, the degrees will equip you with the ability to be a problem solver in your own community if you want. And so there's no shortage of degrees that will lead you and launch you to an amazing professional and personal life. And then the really cool thing about the university, ASU is so nimble. Different programs are born as a result of responding to our evolving and rapidly changing world. Whether it is solving a particular problem, with the earth, or thinking about things from an economic standpoint, we know, and Vanessa's really steeped this work, thinking about career development, the semiconductor industry, and Arizona is becoming a hotspot and a hub. And as a result, there's no shortage of programs that are being developed, currently launching at the university. Though we want to bridge down to the K-12 space to make sure students are exposed as early as possible to have a shot at having a high skill, high wage, high demand job that's not going to be automated, so they can live this amazing quality of life. So programs are currently developed and are being developed all the time in response to our ever-changing world.
I would add to that, right? Even with all the scholarships and financial aid in the world, most of the families that we encounter, that we speak with, that we talk to, that we work with, they want an ROI, right? They want a quick ROI on the investment of going to college for that student, for many reasons. And many of those reasons we know. Many families simply can't afford just to have an individual going to school and not having a return on that investment. So ASU really, I think, understands that. And so while at the university, there's opportunities for internships, apprenticeships, there's mentorship programs where I have seen those mentorship programs then lead that student to a signed contract even before graduating their senior year with that company. We have robust partnerships with industry where we're working together alongside them to really think through these pathways in terms of how are we investing and supporting our very own Arizona local talent? Because the one thing I don't like to hear is we don't have enough talent here in Arizona. We have to keep exporting from the outside. That is simply not true. The reality is that we need to make sure that we are supporting and investing in our students while they're in K-12, but certainly while they're in their post-secondary experience, so that they can start working even while they're still going to school in their desired field of choice, so that it can be a seamless transition. That's something that I think ASU does very well and recognizes is of incredible importance, particularly, right, for our Arizona students and families that just simply don't have the luxury of waiting 4 years without any kind of a return on that investment.
Absolutely. I love a couple of the points that both of you made right there. Start with Quintin's. First, yes, finding their passion. What problem do you want to solve? I try to tell, especially younger people, if you're so wrapped up on getting the value for your hour, you're going to miss the value of your moments. And you're not going to find things that you treasure if you're just working for a paycheck. So I like that. But then the practical side is right there with you, Vanessa, where they need to see ROI. You can't live off your parents forever. Like eventually you have to be making your own money and you have to be able to get out there in the world on your own. So I like that you guys are finding the balance of the two. We have a lot of stuff bubbling up with artificial intelligence. It's kind of changing the landscape of everything. How much are you guys doing to start incorporating artificial intelligence into either education or to even start having like degree programs around artificial intelligence? Like what are you guys seeing at the higher levels right now with AI?
Yeah. I'll start off and say one quick sentence. Arizona State University is the first institution of higher education that has entered into a formal partnership with ChatGPT. Stop. Period.
I dropped their attached on her arm. I can't really drop it for you. We'd have to unscrew it a little bit.
So when you ask about AI, I think it's important first to address, right? I think there's a layer of potential concern. And when people don't really know or are familiar with the technology, yes, that can create consternation and mistrust. So I do think it's important we acknowledge that. I also think it's important to say that the technology is here and it's not going anywhere. As a matter of fact, quite the contrary. It is advancing quickly. And as an institution of higher education, right, where knowledge is created, I think that ASU has risen its hand and said, hey, we want to be first in line. So what I know is that the way it's been rolled out is staff and faculty first, right, to help in things like research and projects. And students maybe at some point, I don't know what that looks like or what that could look like. But again, the technology is here. How do we incorporate it in a way where it supports, elevates, advances, moves forward? Yes, does there need to be some guardrails, some barriers? 100%. I'm always a skeptic. I will admit that. So I'm watching, I'm looking closely to see how that's being done. But the technology is here. And I do see the value of it in many instances throughout education.
Totally agree. There are multiple new degree programs that will launch this fall in a response to artificial intelligence in multiple different colleges. So that is I think the prime display of the university being nimble, understanding that there's change happening, and how do we get in front and control the narrative instead of allowing change to happen to us, which is so commonplace in other spaces. And so tons of very, very smart individuals that work at the university that are trying to figure out not only like the technological side of it, but the social implications, of artificial intelligence. I know we share space in groups of K-12 leaders, like really trying to figure out like, what does this mean? And to Vanessa's point, it's here, and so the train has left the station when it comes to artificial intelligence and AI. And I'm a firm believer that, at the end of the day, like this is an adult issue. Like the kids have already figured things out. And as long as we as adults try to use AI as a vehicle for control, as opposed to a vehicle for engagement, like we'll be late to the party. So I'm, as Vanessa mentioned, Arizona State being number one in innovation for 87 years in a row.
87 years in a row.
87 years in a row. Openly said, open AI, we want to partner. We want to figure it out. New degree programs launching in the fall. But then also creating that community of practice to figure it out together.
that's a dynasty better than any sports team out there. I mean, 87 years in a row in innovation. That's a pretty long dynasty right there.
City Chiefs.
Longer than Michael
There
Crow
aren't
has
enough
been alive.
There aren't enough Mahomes around to keep a dynasty going that long. While ASU definitely has a lot of dynamic opportunities available for so many families, I think everybody can find a different path there. We appreciate the fact that ASU continues to be innovative and inclusive, and we appreciate both of you for being on our show here today. As always, this is the Education Exchange, where we aim to enlighten our parents and empower our students, and we appreciate you for tuning in week after week for listening. Thank you.
And that's the end of our show. Thank you for listening. The Education Exchange is brought to you by Superintendent Jeremy Calles and produced by the Tolleson Union High School District. To learn more about the guests you heard on today's episode, please visit us at www.tuhsd.org. And if you like this podcast, please give us a like, hit that subscribe button, and tune in next week for another episode of The Education Exchange.